If I'm working on a task and I'm really focused, if I can get myself to a flow state, which is really hard, but let's say I do that, the moment I get distracted, the moment you distract me with a notification, I just lost 15 minutes of productivity, just taking me out for 15 minutes. And imagine that happening 315 times a day.
I have something that'll probably triple your profit or something like that. You don't have to pay me unless it works.
And we went around the room and each person had to say, what did you achieve yesterday that helped us hit our goal? And what are you doing today that'll hit our goal?
I'm just going to hire people and say, in order for this to work, you need to make $1 million a year.
Right.
So we need to quadruple our revenue. Let's find a way.
And this is the episode you're going to want to send to everyone you know, everyone you love.
Welcome to the Best Half Show, all about what I think is one of the biggest ideas, and that is that the second half of your life could be 10 times better than the first. The other big idea is that this is a standing podcast. In fact, it's the number one standing podcast in the world, still to this day. And today we're talking about, I think, one of the most important topics in the world, and that is procrastination, right? Which is, why do people not do what they want to do, what they know they should be doing? Why it's such a big problem and what we can do about it. So why is procrastination such a big problem?
Mark, this is the biggest issue of our lifetime right now. And this is the episode you're going to want to send to everyone you know, everyone you love, that your kids, your parents, your friends. Every one of us is struggling immensely with this. We have been programmed now for many years, really since 08, 09, since we got the iPhone and the App Store. The smartest humans on planet Earth have been handpicked from the best universities in the world, paid millions and millions of dollars per year to get us addicted to this device. So now the average person is looking at this device 315 times per day. So to put this in perspective for people, if I'm working on a task and I'm really focused, if I can get myself to a flow state, which is really hard, but let's say I do that, the moment I get distracted, the moment you distract me with a notification, I just lost 15 minutes of productivity.
Yeah.
You've just taken me out for 15 minutes. And imagine that happening 315 times a day.
And so, I think procrastination was just as much, maybe not, was a problem 100 years ago and 2 years ago and 1,000 years ago. Okay, there was people that said, I really should go and invent this round wheel instead of the square thing. But, I've got better things, the other things that I want to be doing to distract my time. I just think that now there's so many distractions that the impulsiveness part of our brain, which we're going to talk about, is kind of going, all the time. But yeah, I'm a terrible procrastinator. People might be surprised at that. I've accomplished a lot in my life. But yeah, I can be so bad that sometimes I'll have an email that I won't open because there's something scary in there.
Right.
Or there's a letter that just sits there unopened because there's a bill in there. It's completely but
or avoiding things.
I absolutely do things like that. And you probably had this experience where, have you had this experience where you accomplish more in an hour than you might normally accomplish in a few days? Because I have.
Of course.
Like when I'm really in the zone.
You get into flow state.
And then you're like, why am I not like this every day?
Yes.
Imagine if I was like this 10% of the time.
Yes.
What I would accomplish, right?
Yes.
I could write lots of novels like Stephen King, or I
Yes.
could go and build 5 businesses at the same time like Elon Musk, whatever. But instead I'm like, wasting time and I'm not getting a lot done. So I think if we want to the greatest force in the universe is human potential.
Yeah.
And humans are squandering their potential every day. You and me are squandering our potential every day.
100%.
Because we're not able to maximally tap into our motivation, human motivation. So that's, I think, big.
Let's dive deep in this, because this is probably the most important topic of our time. Everyone is suffering from it. Everyone.
Yeah.
The most successful people on earth to the least successful people, we're all suffering from this issue. Why are we all suffering from procrastination? Let's really dive into what is it? What's making us avoid doing the hard things every day?
For sure. Why do people procrastinate? And I was so interested in this topic, I actually built a whole company around it. So Influitive is really a company, while the product is a gamified community. Really, it's all about motivational psychology. So I'm really interested. I've always been what makes humans do what they do. And part of it is because I myself have been challenged with it. And it really wasn't until I joined the board of a gaming company that I really started to understand how do you get people to get stuff done? Because gaming companies don't really have to, they don't have to train anybody, right? If they do their job right, they are really good at getting people to do things. But so I'm definitely interested in why people procrastinate, and I've seen lots of theories around it. There's a very simplistic, but I think effective. Tony Robbins talks about something very simple, which is people want to have more pleasure and avoid pain, which is true.
Yes.
These are all organisms, even bacteria, seek reward and want to get away from pain. So it's a simple model, but I think it's true, and he does a good job of doing things like, for example, if you are procrastinating on something, just write down all the reasons not to do something, all the reasons why you're going to feel great if you actually do it, and even just that alone. And when you can see, wow, there really isn't a lot of downside to getting it done, and there's a huge amount of upside, then you're more likely to get it done. So I think that's one of the things that I know you've done a lot of Tony Robbins seminars, so you could probably talk a little bit more about that.
Well, I lived through it this morning. So this morning, I get up at 5 and I was doing my research for today's topic, and I knew I had to do the workout, but I thought, I got to spend more time doing the research. Yeah. So then I'm having this debate with myself. Well, I can justify just staying home, doing the research, and not doing the 1 hour F45 class I was trying to avoid. But then finally I said, no, that's not who I am. I have to do it. So I forced myself to go do the hour, 60-minute class I didn't really want to do. But I think it's the daily discipline. It's because, first of all, I had goals. So if you didn't have goals, then it'd be really easy to make that decision. But I think it was every day we have this battle. Every time you wake up, every morning, it's so easy to hit the snooze button versus like get up. So I think every day we fight this challenge.
Yeah. I mean, on that one, and we could talk about solutions later. Like for me on exercise, I just do it every day. It's just end of story. And maybe it's now become part of my identity. And that might be, I think that's another solution. We talked about alter ego before as a tactic. And so I think that's part of it. It's become part of my identity now. Same thing with my fast on Tuesday. If it's Tuesday, I just don't eat. Like, what's today? Tuesday. Don't eat.
Just part of your.
Today's Wednesday. I could eat today.
Right.
And so I think that's one of the tactics I think for motivation. But so simple model. We seek pleasure. We want to avoid pain. So how do using that model, you can say, well, how do we increase the pleasure more? How do we reduce the pain a little bit? Maybe we can get things done. It turns out that scientists have studied this.
There's actually
a number of different
thousands of studies actually done on procrastination, I'm learning.
Yeah, and there's one that's really quite predictive, and it's really good, a really good model. And it's called a temporal motivation theory. And it's actually a very simple equation. And I think once you understand the equation, then a number of these different tactics actually make sense. And so there's 4 variables. There's 2 in a numerator and 2 in a denominator, and we'll put this up on the screen. So the 2 in the numerator are expectation and value. So if you have a high expectation that you're going to get the value and there's going to be a lot of value, you're going to be more motivated, right? On the denominator, so these are things that reduce motivation, you've got impulsiveness. So if you are an impulsive person, or if there's lots of distractions available to you, like there's chocolate and there's like a hot person of the opposite sex or something like that, you're going to be less motivated to get something done because you've got more distractions around. Right. And the other one factor is delay. So if you have to wait a long time to get your gratification, that's going to reduce your motivation compared to if you're going to get it soon.
Yes.
And if you look at a lot of the studies that have been done on procrastination, this formula or equation does a pretty good job at explaining why people procrastinate. So I think it's really powerful to know that, because once you understand that, then you can say, oh, now I can devise tactics in order to not procrastinate for us. So again, gaming designers have done a good job of this. So instead of having, let's say, this massive task to accomplish, you can chunk it and divide it up into small pieces. And you can arrange it so that, when you first get started, you have something that's a little easier to get accomplished. So the value's not that high, but also the delay is low. And then once you get that done and that feels good, then you can sort of keep moving up the stack so that you have more It gets more challenging, but you also get a greater and greater reward over time. As an example, so you understand a formula, you go and say, "Oh, now I understand what it is, that they're doing." But we could talk about some other solutions, including ones that are really powerful and long term. I'm Mark Organ. I'm co-host of the Best Half Show, all about how to make the second half of your life 10 times better than your first. I've been a successful software as a service company CEO. I've created companies like Eloqua and Influitive. And today I help category defining software company CEOs generate massive success in their businesses. You can find out more about me at categorynauts.com. And if you qualify, you get a free 45-minute session with me. I'll generate a lot of value for you right in that session. And if we hit it off, maybe you'll be a client.
The reason I procrastinate, it's to avoid pain. So I look at a task and go, geez, that doesn't sound like fun.
Yeah.
Like working on my taxes, finding invoices for my accountant. Like none of that seems like fun.
Right. So
I would rather do something else. So I find that when I procrastinate, it's because I'm avoiding what I perceive as pain. Dan Martell said something in a talk recently, and I really loved it. And he said, if you can accomplish a task in 2 minutes, just do it. And most of the tasks that actually have been procrastinating, they're like 2-minute tasks. Like really, it's just like going on my email, find something, just do it. And I kind of like that model because a lot of the tasks that we're avoiding are like really big, challenging ones. They're like 2-minute things that you can just get done. So I really loved his idea about 2 minutes. But I know for myself, I avoid things that I just don't seem to be fun. And that's where I'm struggling.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. We do seek pleasure and want to avoid pain. So, one thing you could do, even the 2-minute task, or for example, the workout in the morning. I mean, all you have to do is imagine how great you're going to feel.
Right.
And the great thing about like the F45 workout is whatever it is takes a few minutes to get there.
Yeah.
It's only 45 minutes.
Well, today was an hour.
Okay.
Saturday.
Saturday. You're going to feel amazing.
It's
afterwards.
True. You always feel great.
And so that's
for 12 hours. For like the next 12 hours, I feel amazing.
Yeah. So
then
the expectation of value is going to be high. I'm going to get the value.
Yes.
Value is going to feel really good. We could talk a little bit about impulsiveness because I think that's, as you're right, that is something that has gotten much worse in our time.
Well, that's huge. Like when I look at my kids now, what should grow up in a time where, because they don't remember a time before a cell phone. So now everything they want in life is like you press of a button. So imagine when there was a TV show that we wanted to watch, you had to wait a whole week for it. Yeah. Like they don't understand the idea of waiting. There's no delayed gratification. Yeah. Everything is instantaneous. They want food. They can press a button and like somebody just shows up. Yeah. Like it's unbelievable.
Yeah. Distractibility is one of if there's anything that you can do for your kids, it's to teach them how to make them indistractable. So there's actually a guy named Nir Eyal who's a game designer. He spoke at one of my conferences, and it's interesting because he did a whole body of work on how to make your software addictive.
Right.
And then he felt bad because he's like, wow, yes, I've studied how to make software addictive, but addictive software is really bad for the world.
It is bad.
And so then his next body of work was about how you can deal with all the distractions out there.
Right.
And he's got some pretty cool, models on how to deal with that. But the great thing is that it's a muscle that you can build. Right?
Yeah. And this is a huge one. So I'm glad we're talking about the muscle. So I know you watched it as well, but Dr. Andrew Huberman, interviewed David Goggins recently. Maybe it was 4 months ago, but they talked about this muscle they've now discovered in your brain. And every time you do something hard, something you don't want to do, this muscle in your brain gets stronger and gets bigger. But the next day, if you don't do anything hard or something you don't want to do, it gets smaller. Yeah. And what they found, the people that live the longest have this like really strong muscle. So people that are very healthy in old age, they built this muscle. And a lot of us, I don't know about you, but we see people around us, maybe it's, Elon Musk or Mark Cuban or whoever we look at, or maybe it's Richard Branson, and we go, how is that person able to continuously, day in, day out, be successful? How do they do that? That motivation? Well, they've built that muscle. Yeah. And every day they do something hard. They do something they don't want to do, and that muscle becomes so strong. And you look at guys like David Goggins, you go, how does the guy do that stuff every day? It's because he's built that muscle. I don't know if you want to talk a bit about the science, the neuroscience behind that.
Yeah. And I can't remember the name of that part of the brain.
It's a pretty complicated name.
Ventromedial singular gyrus, something like that.
Yeah.
I have an ex-neuroscientist. I should know the name of it. But that's a really fascinating idea that it's only when it's something you don't want to do.
Yes.
So like, let's say, for example, the cold plunge.
Yeah.
You start by doing cold plunges and it's really uncomfortable and you don't like it. But after a while, like I actually crave a cold plunge now. In theory, this part of the brain is not growing anymore.
Right.
Because it's no longer uncomfortable.
It's got to be something you don't want to do.
Yeah. So in the beginning it was.
Yes.
So I guess you continually have to seek obstacles and, and get by it. But, so I think you can start by doing things that are hard, but you just have to push yourself. So actually, after I watched that from Huberman, I actually started doing sprint training.
Oh, wow.
Which is very uncomfortable.
Yes.
I've not done it for many, many, many years.
Yes.
But I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to do something
That's amazing.
different. I'm going to go and really push myself. I'm an asthmatic. This is not easy for me to sprint at all.
Yeah.
And also at my age, I definitely risk injury and other things like that.
Yeah.
But it really felt great after. And honestly, I just started because I know the benefits of sprinting.
It's incredible.
You look at sprinters, they look really good.
Yeah.
But a big thing was just, it's hard.
It's hard. Really hard.
It's different.
Nobody wants to do it.
This morning I read something about this really cool thing about mobility, and this guy was talking about this like lizard walk thing, and it looked really cool. I'm like, I'm going to try that today.
Yeah.
I've never done it before. I know it's going to be hard. I know I'm probably going to fall on my ass.
Yeah. So it's interesting you talk about the sprinting. It's something that I've known, like Dr. Peter Attia talks about it, why it's so important. After the age of 30, most people will never do it again. Yeah. But because you just said it, I'm going to do it because we're still on the 75-day challenge. We're almost at the halfway part. But part of when we get to solutions, we'll talk about why it's important to hang around guys that are motivated. And because the fact that you told that to me, that you're doing that, I'm like, okay, that's it. I got social proof. I'm going to go do it now. Yeah. Just like you got me into intermittent fasting. Yeah. Just like you've got me into building my or lowering my body fat. So it's, again, we'll get to solutions later, but it's so important to have friends that motivate you to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Before you start sprinting, there's one very important thing that you need.
An ambulance.
Yeah. But it could be. You need loose hamstrings, so make sure you stretch stretch.
That's a problem for me. No. That's a big problem.
It's actually for everybody. So if there's one muscle you notice a lot, where a lot of people pull it, right? You see football players, soccer players are always pulling their hamstrings, right?
Right.
So just like stretch the crap out of your hamstrings.
Okay, that's good advice.
Before you do any of that, I don't want you to because the worst thing for people our age is injury.
Yes.
There's one thing that's been great. Actually, my trainer has been really great at it. His number one thing is I'm going to keep you away from being injured because
that's huge.
As soon as you're injured, you're not allowed to work out.
Yeah. Okay, good.
But that's good. Yeah. And he talked about other things too. Like I also started jumping, also people don't jump anymore.
Yes. Well, that's what's good about F45. There's lots of jumping.
There is actually. Yeah. So I jump on boxes.
Yeah. It's super important.
That sort of thing.
Yeah.
But that's actually cool. The idea is like, can we develop this part of our brain?
Yes.
Which can help us not procrastinate on other things. Like, can we actually get better at doing our taxes?
Good.
One thing that Tony Robbins did talk about that worked for me is a visualization technique.
Yes. Let's talk about that.
Where you really, like, you think about the negative part, whatever's stopping you, and you literally imagine a wrecking ball smashing it, or you cutting it. Yeah, he does this thing where you have, for example, you can even write whatever the procrastination thing is on a board, and you smash it, right? So you actually have a physical thing of smashing and so then the mental image of a wrecking ball going through the thing that's stopping you from getting
interesting.
things done.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I need all these hacks.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Kind of the way I am.
Yeah.
I will procrastinate forever on things.
Yeah.
They said, Wayne Gretzky was a shitty hockey coach because he was gifted.
Right.
So there's some people who are just gifted.
Yeah.
Incredibly productive people who really don't procrastinate. I'm not that person.
Right. We all struggle with it.
I struggle with it.
So we can talk about more tactics now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so yesterday I was on a 4-hour live call with Tony Robbins, and it was amazing. He did an amazing talk. But he said one of the things that was really important for me was people that have very strong goals, and I'm talking about daily, weekly, monthly, very strong, they tend to procrastinate less. And that's what happened to me this morning. So 2 things. I did 2 cold showers, one when I first woke up, and then one after my workout. And I hate cold showers. Like, I hate it. Like, to me, I hate it. But because I've set myself, I've got these goals on this fitness challenge that we're doing, and I've got these really very strict fitness goals that I've changed my identity. So I'm like, I have to do this stuff. I have to work out. I got to use cold shower. So I think if you don't have goals, I think it's going to be really tough to beat procrastination. So I would almost start with like, if you don't have really specific goals, you're just going to procrastinate because you like, where are you going anyway?
Right.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's goals, but then what's important is why you have those goals, right? So I think if you just have a goal, like lots of people have goals and they don't achieve them.
Right.
Lots of people.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been like that where I've had goals and I've not achieved it.
Right.
Why? What makes it so that people are able to achieve those? And I think it's when it's linked to some sort of purpose or why or whatnot. Like one of the things that's really motivating, I mean, a few things about this fitness challenge, right? That's motivating. Some of it is very long term. So like I imagine, you know, when I'm 75 years old and looking back at my life, right? What am I going to be proud of? What's my situation be like? And I imagine that even at 75, I'm really fit. Right. I'm really fit. I have at least another 20 years of high health span left.
Right.
So I imagine that, right? I want to be around for my grandkids and even great grandkids, because I know that whatever habits we build now are going to be really important for later in life. I look at my parents and I look at the difference between my mom and my dad, where my mom probably has a biological age that's lower than her chronological age, and my father has it higher than his chronological age. So I don't want to be like my dad that sits there on the couch, right, and is not able to move very well and whatnot at 77. Right. I want to be spry at that age. So some of it's very long-term stuff, but then there's also some short-term things where, like, I imagine, how attractive I'm going to look when I look like that. I imagine the photos that we're going to take, how amazing those are going to look. Yeah. I imagine how inspired people are going to be. You know, our whatever today, few hundred or thousand watchers or listeners, how inspired they're going to be by our example. Yes. Right. And I think about that, and that really motivates me. Yeah. I think about not wanting to disappoint people. So now there's some accountability. We have a whole group of people there, right? We want them to be inspired, but we also don't want them to be disappointed. I don't know about you, but I found that not wanting to disappoint people is a very, very powerful motivator. It is huge. For me. Is huge, yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you can set things up such that, again, you've got mutual accountability, and where you have people who are going to be disappointed if you don't execute. You have people who will be inspired if you do execute. Yeah.
Hey, it's Roman Bodnarchuk from the Best Half Show. Are you 40 plus? You've been very successful building your business or in your career, but maybe you're not at the level you thought you could have been. Maybe your relationship is not as good as it could be. Maybe you look in the mirror and you're not proud. You're not as healthy as you could have been. Well, Mark and I have been very successful in creating and starting some billion-dollar businesses, and we believe, and we're living proof, that the second half of your life could be 10x better. You can be in the best shape of your life. You can have the best relationships of your life. You can have the most fun and travel the most and just have the best part of your life. The second half of your life. That's what the Best Half Show is, and we hope you join us. So let's talk about some ideas to prevent procrastination. So what I found in practice and in research, if you get a good night's sleep, if you actually get a solid night's sleep, which is struggle for all of us, and I track my sleep now and I'm like, oh my gosh, I thought I was doing great and I'm not. But if you can achieve a really good night's sleep, which means go to bed early, not sleep in, but get to bed early, your willpower is off the charts the next day. You feel so great. And the difference between when you've had a really poor night's sleep and you're tired, you are in a bad mood, you're grumpy, your willpower is super low, so you're going to make all these poor decisions. So I find a simple hack is just go to bed early, because by going to bed early, you wake up with massive willpower, you wake up in a good mood, you feel great, and you're more likely to not procrastinate. Yeah. Have you had that experience?
Yeah, no, I have. Sleep's hard for me. So a really good night's sleep for me is 6 hours. A top tier sleep is 7 hours for me. Yeah. And I have the Oura ring.
Yeah, that's great.
I measure my REM sleep, deep sleep, and whatnot. I struggle with it.
What kind of scores are you getting these days?
In terms of sleep scores, it's like in the 50s.
Yeah, 60s. Mine's like I got to 68 or 69. Like am having a hard time get beyond 68. Like it's hard.
Yeah, no,
It's really tough.
68 would be very good
Yeah.
night for me.
Yeah.
And there's things I'm doing, like I got silk sheets, which I recommend,
Okay.
like real ones. So those are naturally cooler and when it's hot out and warmer. Blackout blinds and like there are things like that.
Yeah.
I think related to sleep and sort of my issue right now is just emotional state.
Yes. Yes.
So I've got, there's some challenging things going on in my family right now.
Yes.
It's got me in a negative emotional state a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that's very much related to sleep. I'm probably getting less sleep as a
Yeah.
result, but also, poor sleep elevates your cortisol. So does a bad emotional environment.
Yeah.
If your brain is flooded with cortisol all the time, you are going to procrastinate. Like
Yes,
that's one of the,
yes.
because we want to feel better.
But do you find, does the exercise help you? Like when you're in a bad emotional state, do you find the exercise makes you,
It's great.
Okay,
and,
good.
And yeah,
Good.
I had a great day, not just exercise, but yeah, and going for a walk, looking in the sun.
Yes,
Right?
getting natural sun.
That's one of the
Huge.
challenges being in Toronto, and probably
Yes.
one reason to consider at some point, moving someplace where
100%.
you don't have these long winters.
Yeah.
Just be able to get outside and
Yeah.
in whatever it is you're wearing and having the sun there. But yeah, absolutely, like good diet, exercise, all those other hygiene factors, including sleep, I think helps a lot.
Good.
For sure.
Good. So we agree with that. The next one I've learned is pick the one thing that you're procrastinating, the one most important task, and get it done first thing in the morning.
Yeah, eat the frog, right?
So what I've learned is this whole thing about, I'm a night person. That's not true. We are designed as human beings to coordinate with nature and our circadian rhythms. So when the sun rises, when the sun comes up, we should be working or working out. And the number one thing, your number one most difficult task must be done first thing in the morning. If you can achieve that first thing, you feel like an absolute winner.
Yeah, that's true.
So this whole myth of like, I'm a night person and I sleep in, that's just not true. Yeah. And when the sun comes up, we are supposed to be awake. And if you do your hardest thing first, again, it could just be one task, but once you've achieved your most difficult task, man, you just feel like, and it's unlikely you're not going to do the next task because you just feel like such a winner. It's like in the morning when I make my bed, simple task, but I come home and I feel like a winner. Yeah. Like the room looks good. If you had a shitty day, it makes you feel good. If you had a good day, makes you feel good. These little things, but I find doing the hardest task, just one every morning, is a huge thing for me. How about you?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. It's one of the things I do with my clients that are struggling as well with this is this, how many days do you have a perfect morning? Or your miracle morning in the morning. So what you could do is essentially it's like a checklist. I have it for myself.
Yeah.
Right. Where I want to get a workout in. I want to meditate. I do my stretching in the morning. I do something nice for my kids in the morning. And then one of the things you can do is like the frog. Have you eaten the frog or not in the morning? Because a lot of people know that they're supposed to do that important thing, but they don't do it. And so if you've got that checklist and then you've got something that you're accountable to someone, so you have like an accountability partner and you basically share that. So it's like, yeah, I got 4 out of 7 this week. It's like a mad week, right?
Yeah.
This other one's like, I got 6 out of 7. You're like, I want to try to get that. I want to try to get that as well.
Yes.
So yeah, I like checklists in general. I think it's and it feels good to sort of check things off. But that's one way that you can put that sort of eat the frog thing, which is something Brian Tracy come up with. If you have to do one really tough task a day, like eating a frog, you want to do that first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
You could actually put that into the system of mutual accountability because then you don't want to disappoint people. You want to inspire people.
Yeah.
You want to get like the little wins of checking things off. You can put it in a system like that.
And I think the accountability is huge. If you have friends or a partner where you go, hey, let's say for the next 75 days, what if we could both agree to just do one hard thing every day? Could you imagine 75 days when you checked off 75 really tough things? Holy shit. That's what we want people to accomplish in a decade.
Yeah.
Like you could do in 75 days.
I think that's where the whole 75 hard thing came from, right? It's pretty interesting. I don't know if people are familiar with 70. I know you've looked into it.
Yeah.
But I think the person who created it was a procrastinator.
Right.
And what he was working on was actually building his capacity for work. And so he created this system of 75 hard, which is now a lot of entrepreneurs are now doing it.
Yes.
But the whole idea was to increase productive capacity.
Yeah, it makes you superhuman. So another idea, and I just want to share it with you because something that I'm working on is I'm really good at creating a big to-do list for myself. But one of the things I learned from Strategic Coach, and
Yeah.
did Strategic Coach for years, and the Dan Sullivan that created it, one of the talks he did, which really resonated with me, he's like, it's not your list of what you should do. It's like, what could you possibly delegate? And now I make a conscious decision to try to delegate every possible thing that I don't have to do.
Yeah.
And it's huge. Even like we were talking about the party we're going to have in a month. I'm like, hey, call this person because they can do all that for us. Like we don't have time. So I think this delegation is super important. I know people go, oh, I can't afford it, this and that. But I think we can't afford not to do some of these tasks.
Yeah.
Because we got to focus on what we're great at.
Yeah, no, and I'm going through this right now. Like when I was running software companies, it's a lot easy. I found it a lot easier to go and hire people, whether those are full-time employees or whether those are contractors, to get things done. And part of it, I mean, thinking about that equation again, right, is that we know that the value, if you're working on a software company that gets valued at whatever it is, 5 to 15 times revenue, you know that, if you can get some of these things done, you're going to be building more valuable business, right? So I had an executive assistant. I also had a chief of staff. Basically my theory was that what the company really needed was a superhuman CEO. And everything I could do to make myself superhuman was a good investment. And I think that was right. Now I'm a coach. It's really quite different. If I, let's say, get a full-time, executive assistant, and that's going to cost me, I don't know, $60,000 a year, am I going to get $180,000 back out of it? I'm not sure. So the expectation is kind of lower. I've really changed my mentality. So I'm going to be hiring people. And what I'm going to do now is I know that I'm going to feel better if I have people around me. If I'm accountable for people for their career, I'm just going to hire people and say, in order for this to work, we need to make $1 million a year.
Right.
So we need to quadruple our revenue.
Yes.
Let's find a way.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Let's find a way.
Yeah.
And so I've really changed my thinking on it. But again, it's about increasing that expectation of value, increasing the actual amount of value of doing it. And maybe at the same time, reducing some of that impulsiveness by saying, let's make this happen and make myself accountable.
Yeah.
And, anyway, that's a big change that I'm making.
Yeah. I think outsourcing, delegating tasks, when we look at what is our hourly worth versus if I can pay somebody, $25 an hour or $50 an hour to do that task, instead of using my time for that, my time be better spent doing something else. I think sometimes we forget that. And I don't know, what it's like when you have this discussion with your parents. And my parents are like, oh, you can mow your own lawn or you can clean your own house. Yeah. And I'm like, I've just never done that because my time is at a certain value. But my parents would never understand that conversation. Yeah. So I think it's just something that you think about, but you can easily gain like 30 hours a week by delegating a lot of tasks that really we shouldn't be doing. Hey, it's Roman Bodnarchuk from the Best Half Show. I'd love you to join me on a 75-day complete transformation. I want you to join me because I'm going to do it with you. It's 75 days where I believe together we can create and become the best of our possible selves. Imagine in 75 days, we have the best bodies of our lives. Imagine in 75 days, we look the best we've ever done. I really believe we can do it. So I look forward to you joining me on the 75-day transformation.
Yeah, that might be one of the good reasons to have help like that, is reduces procrastination. And one thing that is interesting is every now and again, procrastination is actually helpful. You're right. The reason why we procrastinate is because of a sense of fear. And sometimes that fear is actually well-founded. There's a reason why so I don't know what it is. Maybe 80% of the time procrastination is bad.
Yes.
But 20% of the time it's good. There's something in the brain that is actually stopping you for a reason.
Okay. So give me an example of that, because I'm curious about that.
Yeah. I don't know. Haven't you ever had decisions before, like really tough decisions that you've put off for some reason? You don't know why you are. And then in the end, it was actually a really good idea that you put it off because actually, more data comes out that says, wow, that I dodged a bullet there. I I could think of.
I mean, I think of like businesses I probably shouldn't have started, you know. I agree, but not not on a particular task. Like if there's a task that I know I have to do and I'm procrastinating, I don't know about that. But I agree with you, like on business ideas I come up with, and then when I give it more time, like, yeah, that's not a great idea.
Yeah. So I think business ideas is a good one where, sometimes more data is a good thing. Maybe that's what it is. It's there are some times where more data is actually a good thing. I mean, have you ever had it before where a client has said, hey, can you do X? And instead of jumping right into it, you waited a little bit and then all of a sudden they didn't really want X anymore.
Right. That's true.
So that happens. And that's because sometimes there are other people that are impulsive and maybe you just need more data.
Yeah.
So that might be the thing, is thinking through, will more data actually make this easier, or more likely to get value or get higher value? And the answer to that is usually no.
Yes.
More data is not going to be helpful.
Yeah.
So I should just go and do it. But where there is a time where it's like, yeah, actually, it could be very valuable. I can go from 50% certainty to 80% certainty with just a little bit more work.
Yeah.
I think so. I like the Colin Powell rule of make a decision when you're 70% sure.
Yes. And Bezos says the same thing. Like, don't wait for all the information.
Which actually means that 1 out of 3 decisions or so will be a bad one.
Correct, but make the decision. Most people do not make decisions. That's the challenge.
Yeah, so I actually make it and think, well, how will I know if I've gone down a wrong road?
Yes.
Well, I will expect to see this data if I'm going down the right road, this data if I'm going down the wrong road. If I'm seeing the adverse data, then I know that I made a bad decision, which happens at least 1 out of 3 times. Actually, you're a good decision maker. It's 1 out of 3 bad decisions.
No, it's true.
Usually it's more than that.
So let's talk about some of the daily habits that people can implement today. That will help them overcome procrastination. Yeah. So we talked about good sleep. So without going into all the reasons that people don't have good sleep, but usually it's because the phone is in their bedroom. It's because they had alcohol. It's because they ate too late at night. So again, these are things to get good sleep. So, you've got to eat earlier. You can't have your phone in your bedroom. No alcohol. So these are things that will help sleep. Cold room, the dark room. But once you've had a good night's sleep, immediately getting up again when the sun rises and doing the hard thing. Again, for us, it's like maybe it's the workout or whatever it is, doing the hard thing first. So that's an example. Any other things you can think of a daily habit that people can implement to overcome procrastination?
Yeah, I mean, there's one that came, I think it was John Rockefeller, and the story is he paid so there was I think that's it. This is back, Standard Oil was having a difficult time. So he met a management consultant, and the manager said, I have something that will probably triple your profit or something like that. You don't have to pay me unless it works. And so Rockefeller said, what is it? And it was very simple. Write down the most important thing you've got to get done for the next day. Do that the night before. Carry it around in your pocket that day. Keep looking at it until you get it done.
Yeah,
so apparently that
completely
changed the direction of Standard Oil, and he got paid the equivalent of millions of dollars today.
Yeah,
for this one nugget that this management consultant said. So I think that's
really good.
Yeah, I've got mine right here.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah. One of the things that Google did, I know it was like the first 10 or 15 years. I don't know if they still do it now, but they created a very simple thing that every employee, they would get an email and they'd have to complete it every day. What are the number 1, 2, or 3 tasks that you completed today? And then it went to their team. So everybody could see what's the one thing or 2 or 3
this
things.
Is like 15.5 does that.
Yeah. So what happened was, and it's hard. You can't go, I attended meetings. I went to a conference. I had a phone call. No. It's like, what did you achieve?
Yeah.
And one of the things with Montecito Property Company, Chip Conk, the CEO, created a system where every morning at 8:30 in the morning, we met every morning at 8:30. It didn't matter. There was no holidays. It's 8:30. And if you were in a different time zone, you had to be live on the call. Didn't matter where you were. And we went around the room and each person had to say, what did you achieve yesterday that helped us hit our goal? And what are you doing today that will hit our goal? And you had to, and like, first of all, you were never late for the meeting. There was like zero policy of not being there. And just thinking about what did I do yesterday to help the company achieve its mission? And then what am I going to do today? And there was no like, I sent that person a note, I'm waiting for a callback. There was just no bullshit. Yeah. And that company, we went from zero, from startup to 1 billion in revenue in 12 months. And I attribute it to that friggin' meeting because it was so powerful when you get the management team every morning at 8:30. What did you do yesterday? And what's your one thing today? And there was no bullshit. That is, it's about your same rule. It's like the one thing every day. If you just do achieve one thing every day, hit your goal, it's powerful.
Yeah, I had a daily meeting like that too. My company says, in fact, even when I had 165 people, I still had a daily meeting, all hands meeting. It changed a little bit. It was less about, you can't have 165 people saying what they did the day before. It became other things, but yeah, there's a lot of value in having
Accountability.
Yeah, accountability and tempo. So tempo meaning like having the daily all hands meeting is great. But you can also do that for yourself. Like, I don't know if you keep a journal. I don't. I really should. I've heard really good things about journaling.
Yeah.
But imagine if you did that for yourself and just you spend 2 minutes journaling a day. Here's what I did today that I'm proud of. Here's what I'm going to do tomorrow. Just so that you're more mindful. Because I don't know about you, but a lot of times when I'm doing things that I'm not supposed to, I'm not mindful. So I have a problem, for example, with late night eating, late night snacking.
That's a huge problem.
I'm not even thinking.
Because it messes up your sleep.
Yeah, I'm like a robot.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm like a robot animal, like fucking raccoon. Just food. I gotta eat food. I don't need food. I'm not hungry.
Yes, I know. I know.
Just I
suffered with that my whole life. Yes.
Right. So I think we're not always mindful. The one thing that's great about journaling, or same thing with, for example, like putting your calories into MyFitnessPal. Like why I think that works is that you're being mindful because you're like, oh, I'm eating this. Oh, if I eat this, I have to put it in. Essentially, I have to journal it. I've got to go and write that down in my system. Yeah. Which, of course, if you build accountability to it, let's say you can go and see that. Like you can set it up so that we can see each other's thing. Yeah. Oh my God, Roman's going to see that I ate this late night snack. I don't really want to do that. I'm just going to go to bed. Yeah. Right. I'm not going to have this late night thing. So I think even just being mindful, so you're not having your lizard brain that's doing this stuff, but you actually have your higher level processing. I think that could really be important.
Okay. So far you've got me cold plunging. You've got me intermittent fasting. I've just committed to starting sprinting. Will you commit to just before you go to bed, just writing down the one thing, the one most important thing for the next day? Let's do that.
Let's do that because
because I think that will be a game changer for us.
It's a simple thing.
Let's do it.
Okay.
All right. So today, if you're at this point of the show, you're a 1%er. Very few people, the All Start podcast, very few people actually go to the end, but you're a 1%er. We want you to reach out to Mark and I because we're going to challenge each other. We're probably going to start some 75-day challenge together, but we want to hold each other accountable. So reach out to us, comment, subscribe. I don't know what platform you're on, but reach out to us because we want to be part of your team as well. Yeah. Thank you.
And if you're on video, smash that subscribe button, provide some comments. We will respond to any comments that you make in the video, and we appreciate any of your thoughts about everything we talked about.
So we're on for the challenge.
We're on.